I'm in this place in my healing where I'm starting to be able to take these risks and not totally sure if all of them are healthy risks, but like enough that I can be like, oh, that's not a risk I want to take again, or oh yeah, I was able to be in that space and actually that was fun, or this was good for me, or
Mm-hmm.
whereas in the past, very, very risk averse and very scared of new experiences and things like that. Even though if you look at my life, you wouldn't think that. You would just be like, wow, you've been like you travel, you've toured, you've traveled, you've performed, you've done all these things. Like it's just wild to just be like.
Is your toxic shame getting in the way of your singing? For many trauma survivors, toxic shame makes it almost impossible to believe that we can do something that brings us joy. In some cases, it makes it so that we do not even know what brings us joy. It is like a pervasive virus that refuses to be treated away. This week, Ali Boyce is back. Ali and I continue our conversation about complex PTSD and singing. We talk about how unaddressed toxic shame can get in the way of self expression, how social media can amplify the pressure of toxic shame, the importance of constantly reparenting our inner kiddos, how becoming aware of our sensations can help expand the self awareness that gets hijacked by trauma, and so much more. Hi, I am Raisa, a survivor of narcissistic abuse, and I have complex post traumatic stress disorder. And you are listening to Hello Trauma Brain, a podcast where I share my experiences living with complex PTSD. My hope is this podcast can help destigmatize mental illness and provide support to anyone diagnosed with C-PTSD who thinks they might have it or has a loved one with this diagnosis. Quick reminder, I am not a licensed psychologist or mental health care professional, and this podcast is not meant to replace nor substitute the care of psychologists, other mental or medical health care professionals. If you think you might have complex PTSD or any of the conditions or disorders mentioned in this podcast, please reach out to your primary care or mental health care provider. Any individuals or resources mentioned in this podcast are not sponsoring Hello Trauma Brain. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by this week's guest are solely their own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Hello Trauma Brain and the host. This episode may reference trauma or abuse, and listener discretion is advised. Remember, you can always pause or skip this episode at any time. And now, let's get back to the episode. Hello, dear survivors, and welcome to this episode of Hello Trauma Brain. Thank you for joining me today. If you are listening on YouTube, a gentle reminder to hit the like button to let me know this episode was helpful. So, welcome to the newbies, and welcome back to those that are returning to the pod. As always, I wish you didn't need to be here, but I am glad you can have this content to hopefully help you figure out how to go about your healing journey or understand your loved one who is. Quick check in. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, and what I mean by that is I am fluctuating from some extremes, and one extreme is like feeling like I am really starting to feel things clicking in my healing and I'm feeling more empowered and I feel like this is all going to work out. And then I pendulate to the other end, which is, I don't know what the heck I'm doing anymore. I think I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life at this rate and nothing is going to get better. And I don't even know why I'm bothering with this. And then I go back to the other end. And it's something that is starting to happen now within the same day. So, for example, earlier today, I was really in a bit of a darker place. And then in the afternoon, I kind of got over the hump. And I want to say part of it is, and I've been doing this for a while now, When I take my lunch break, I live close enough to my apartment that I am able to come here and eat here. And something that I have been starting to do during my lunch break is put on a kids show or something that's very light. And my inner kiddo loves Bluey. I want to say this is our third time rewatching the whole series. And I know they have the mini episodes too. And those I have watched like once through, but the 3 seasons of the main show I've been just rewatching it over and over. And I want to make an episode on this because I think Bluey is a show that portrays healthy parenting in a great way. And it also helps contrast and bring awareness to the things I didn't get when I was growing up. And also, it has brought a lot of grief. But for the most part, it just brings me so much joy, and my inner kiddo just loves those 2 little puppies. I adore Bingo. I kinda relate a little bit more to Bingo herself. She's a very sensitive young soul, and yeah, I feel like that was me growing up for sure. I will say I also had quite a bit of an intense weekend. Things, things did not go the way we wanted for a bit there, and my inner kiddo was really triggered. And I want to say dialoguing was definitely what helped me get all the hopelessness out of my system. And once I was able to do that, things started to turn around again to the point where at the end of the day, I couldn't believe what had happened just a few hours earlier. I think that's going to be my check in for this week. P.S. My OCD has been, whew, a little overwhelming right now, but we're going to work through it. So, before we dive into this conversation, a few things to keep in mind as you take in this conversation. I personally love hearing human moments, especially in the episodes with guests. And I invite you to join us as we go through the motions during this conversation. Ali and I laughed, cried, took moments to take in our own conversation, and I can't wait to share part 2 with you momentarily. Speaking of which, if you have not listened to part 1, I will link that to the show notes and encourage you to check that out and return for part 2. Well, a little recap on this week's guest. Ali Boyce is a singer, songwriter, voice teacher, massage therapist, biodynamic craniosacral therapist, yoga teacher, and performer. And the focus of our conversation is going to be on singing and complex PTSD. Also, a reminder that the video footage for just the conversation portion of this episode will be on the YouTube channel and Spotify. I do want to point out that if you are watching the footage, you will see Ali's reenactment of an exercise she uses to bring her inner kiddo down from a trigger. During the healing invitation, I will describe the physical movements with a bit more detail for those of you that are only listening to the episode. I hope you are able to enjoy this conversation as much as I have. And without any further delay, here is part 2 of my conversation with Ali Boyce. And I wanted to ask you also, this is another thing that I saw on your Instagram account, and I feel like it kind of plays a role into some of these things that some of the exercises that you're describing are targeting, which is untangling the toxic shame that gets in the way of expression, of singing, of showing up as yourself. And I was curious to hear, for anyone who's not familiar with this link, like, how does toxic shame play a role into the singing specifically?
Yeah, good question. So toxic shame manifests in a, like, if one gets triggered when they're singing, and it's usually when you're singing in front of somebody, when you're being witnessed singing, it usually manifests with like this feeling of, oh yeah, I kind of feel like I want to go back to like what it feels to even be triggered to your inner kid a little bit, because that is helpful information. But
Yeah.
so maybe I'll just
However,
talk about that for a minute.
yeah, whatever works
So
for you. Take your time.
awesome. So yeah, so with like when one gets triggered, if you're feeling triggered around singing, it usually ends up being that you're having an emotional flashback, which is one way to describe that is that you are living in a younger version of yourself, of your nervous system. So something has reminded you of a younger time in your life. And sorry, there was a little dust.
It's
And I'm doing a
okay.
dance move.
I'm not sure if the camera's gonna pick it up. Making an appearance. Wants to be seen, Ali.
It wants to be seen. How can we deny it that?
I don't know, right? It's giving us a good laugh. That works for me.
So yeah, I know it's like, and then emotional flashbacks is also serious, right?
Of course the dust comes in.
Thank you, Dust. Yeah, so we get triggered back to a younger, an inner child experience, right? So when we were a kid, this experience of feeling small, helpless, powerless, stuck, trapped, because we were, right? When we were kids, we were. That we depended on our caretakers, our parents, to look after us, and so if they were abusive, we were helpless, trapped, powerless. And we were kids too. So we actually are. That's just our developmental stage. We are dependent on them. So when we're triggered in anything, but I'll speak about singing in particular, in our singing, it can feel like that in our bodies. We can all of a sudden start to feel kind of like smaller, helpless, like powerless. And the shame response will feel a lot like that. That's a triggered response. And that's like a very common trigger experience for people with C-PTSD is the shame, the toxic shame being like the triggered, I'm not even going to say feeling, but experience. And it often will feel like with singing, like I'm not good enough. I'll never be good enough. Why bother? I should never have tried. Who do I think I am? Those sorts of kind of narratives can start floating through your brain as the thoughts, and then the body experience of it is this sense of like helpless, powerlessness, trapped. I used to have this kind of running narrative of like this phrase of like I might as well just go jump off a bridge. Like that was my shame response line, which like I think about that now and I just thought that was, I don't know, did I think that was normal? I don't know. It just was the thing that my brain was like, you're worthless, right? Like so this feeling of just being worthless, less than nothing, broken, defective. There's something deeply wrong with me. That's the toxic shame showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I may, I'm gonna throw my 2 cents at like I'm gonna jump off a bridge. Like might as well just what's the point? I feel like growing up, at least for me, like when things like that would pop into my head, like you normalize them, like I would normalize them, and you think that everybody else might be thinking something similar. And it's a bit of a rude awakening when you look back and it's like, wow, like that's really intense. That's a really intense reaction, and of course, given what was happening at the time,
It makes so much sense, right? And I think that's the like, if I say anything, I think that's the phrase I say the most in my teaching and my facilitation work is that makes sense. Like because part of our journey is that we think that we don't make any sense, that we're messed up, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I'll share for a moment. Like for me, the narrative is I can only sing other people's songs. That's all I can do. Stick to what you know. Sing the covers. You're good at it. Don't bother writing your shit. Like, who cares? And the instruments, that's somebody who actually is good at them. Play them. Like, don't even try. And lately, I mean, this is the narrative from the toxic shame, the inner kiddo coming in. Like, I'm trying to do a lot of work with allowing myself to just ponder the possibility of like, what if we actually could write a song and it's actually not half bad and it's decent and we can put it out there and one person gets something out of it. Like that can be enough. Like it doesn't have to win a Grammy and be on the Billboard Top 100 for for 50 weeks. So it's valuable. Like that's even those measurements. Like part of me, like sometimes my heart breaks for some of the artists that are very well known. Like recently, the Grammys happened, and like it broke my heart a little bit to see people reacting. Like they're putting a clip of like Billie Eilish's reaction. It's like, that's a lot of fucking pressure. It's a lot of fucking pressure. And it was a great album. And there's a lot of great albums out there. And like to me, like it almost angers me that people make a point of like, oh, when you get the Grammy, that's when it was good enough. Like it was always good enough. It was good enough from the moment she recorded it with Phineas in the studio. And it's I feel like social media is one of the things where I my heart just goes because it amplified so much of that. Like I remember when I would compete in talent shows and it was just a little talent show in Puerto Rico and like nobody was posting on social media because that wasn't even a thing. And I still would feel the shame. Like I cannot imagine honestly what it is like to live in a world right now where all eyes are on you and it's like toxic shame times 1,000. And on doing that, like yeah, we I hope they have a good therapist or professional that can help them through that because it's wild. It's so much pressure. Like it's it feels like a lot for me and I'm just looking at a little post.
Yeah. Yep.
I will take a hard left. I wanted to also ask you. I noticed that when I was reading your bio, you have a lot of like so many things that you've tried. And that speaks a lot of like the dedication of just trying until you find something that works. Has there been a particular technique that resonated the most with you? Or would you say like that the whole pie was what you needed and that's how I think you get what I'm trying
Yeah.
to ask. I'll let you answer
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I can I make a comment on what you said before around the fame
Please.
culture? It's like that thing where it's like your nervous system is probably like able to play a little more now, right? Like because that's how I felt when I started being able to write songs cuz yeah, I definitely just felt like I'm only a musical theater singer. That's all I can do. Stick to what you know. And yeah, same. I have a similar story around like piano and guitar. Like you're mediocre. Like let other people do that thing, Like, and so that capacity being expanded and how like how like as you practice the playing with like doing your song and being like, okay, it's good enough. I'm just gonna show up to this and show up to it again in the way that you can in like the gentle, compassionate parenting way. Like that's how we expand our nervous system, right? Like our capacity in our nervous systems, because there isn't going to be a one day that we're going to magically be someone will discover us. Like I definitely have had that magical thinking where it's like, oh, I'm going to be discovered and someone will finally cast me in their musical as the lead and like I'll finally be known and seen and loved and like all of the things that are in my story around that. And so much a part of healing the singing stuff, that's because that's all creativity, right? It's all expression work, right? It's like is that piece of like knowing that it's these very tiny steps that we honestly can't even see, and then it's like this over time, this expansion that happens. So one day it's like you just like, wait a minute. Like for me, I feel like, wait a minute, how can I just like now do this thing and not like have tons of shame around it all the time? Wow. Oh, you had the question about techniques. Yeah, good question. I mean, for with the RRP model, the inner child dialoguing and the inner child reparenting work has been so valuable for me. Um, the piece of that combined with a body, the somatic piece for me, like I will often do like feeling into my body where the where my where there's sensation. If I'm not 100% in a trigger, if I'm like in a minor, mild trigger, I can do that. And that combined with the gentle, compassionate reparenting, I feel like I live alone. I'm just like walking around my house reparenting myself. I'm just like, I am talking to myself like every moment I am awake, like talking to my inner kid, like, we're doing okay, you're okay. It makes sense that you would feel nervous about this thing you're doing. You've never done it before. Like before this podcast, it was like, it makes sense that you would just feel like a little bit activated. It's a new thing and we're just going to experiment. And so that kind of like, Marissa mentioned this in our last RRP group together, that like that continual constant practice of reparenting is the like such a huge piece. um, and for me, body work and the body, right? Like there's no there's it is so hard to describe how just life changing, getting like even just doing movement practice that is not exercise, that is like felt sense, like basically when I say that, I mean brain is bringing awareness to the sensation in the belly. What's that sensation? And then tracking that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I'm just
Yeah.
having a moment. I just hear what you're saying.
Yeah. It's touched.
It is. And thank you for sharing, by the way, how you felt like even coming before the podcast, because I had a similar thing and I also live by myself. So I'm, you could have totally been talking about me. It's like, were you watching me before we started? Like, what's going on? I have this rainbow manatee that I got for myself for the holidays. And I've been hugging this little thing like a few times today just to kind of like get ready and calm my inner kiddo down, because it's yeah, she needs a lot of help.
She needs
That's
so
really,
much help.
yeah,
Yeah.
it comes down to that. Like it, I almost feel like everything can feel so overwhelming. And I think the reason I feel like everything is so overwhelming because she's feeling like this is overwhelming. And
Yeah.
reminding her constantly, as many times as it takes, she doesn't have to deal with the overwhelm anymore. I'm dealing with the overwhelm. I know she feels like she has to deal with the overwhelm because she had to deal with the overwhelm when we were growing up. And it was chaotic. But I can handle it. And she doesn't have to pick it up after me. And she doesn't have to clean up my mess if I fuck it up. Like, I'm going to come and apologize to her and I'm going to make it right. And I appreciate you sharing that you also have that experience, because I feel like sometimes people put the therapist on a pedestal and all this pressure comes on the therapist, like, you gotta be perfect all the time and you gotta get it right. And sure, like, sometimes it's just not the right fit, and if it's not the right fit, please follow your gut. But also, like, taking in, like, therapist is also as human as we are, and they're also going through this stuff too. And there is no, I snapped my fingers and I am cured and my inner critic went to hell and I haven't heard it in 10 years. Like, the work is really, even though the voice sometimes still creeps up, I'm going to do something different about it this time.
Yeah. And I do want to say I'm not a mental health therapist. I'm not trained as a mental health therapist.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I totally, fair.
Yeah.
And you're
But
still a professional in the
yeah,
field,
I'm a
and it still
professional.
applies to
Yeah.
you and to any therapist out there. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I know what you meant though.
No, I kind of screwed that up for a minute, so I appreciate you correcting me.
No, I wasn't sure if you knew that, so I just wanted to make sure that I don't want to mislead anyone. So
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Thank you for sharing all of that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yes, I feel like we're all just need to be doing that, or like not need to. Need is a hard word, right? But I just think that it's so valuable to,
Mm-hmm.
and to like also normalize that it's not a one step, one quick fix solution. Like there's no like, or there's just no, yeah, I think there's this idea in our culture, the same with fame, right? We just see the product. So like this idea of like, I'm going to do like I'm going to intermittent fast for the rest of my life and I'll be fine. Or like the ways that we use things to um, just treat the symptoms, and then we also, I mean, it is so hard to be in process. So that's part of it. Yeah.
It is. It is.
And I will say, I just recently performed at an open mic, and I perform, but this past year I've been doing more teaching than performing, and so this year I'm focusing on getting it more out there with my stuff again, and so I went to an open mic on a date the other night, which was like double whammy of
Double
nerve,
whammy, girl.
you
Yeah.
know? And it was interesting to be like, is this a good choice? I don't know. But I'm in this place in my healing where I'm starting to be able to take these risks and not totally sure if all of them are healthy risks, but like enough that I can be like, oh, that's not a risk I want to take again. Or, oh, yeah, I was able to be in that space and actually that was fun, or this was good for me, or
Mm-hmm.
whereas in the past, very, very risk averse and very scared of new experiences and things like that. Even though if you look at my life, you wouldn't think that. You would just be like, wow, you've been like, you've toured, you've traveled, you've performed, you've done all these things. Like, it's just wild to just be like, you can't tell anything by looking at the outside of someone's life, which why again is why Instagram is just, you can't look at Instagram and be like, oh, that person's so happy.
Mm-mm. No.
But the one thing I did before that open mic is I did like I learned this bilateral stimulation uh, from a teacher of mine, adding humming. And
Mm.
I was doing this like bilateral stimulation, and I was just because I could feel I was activated, but I wasn't triggered. I was just like, oh, that sensation. And so I was like, I'm going to sit down. And then while that was happening, I was reparenting. So not out loud because I was humming, but I was giving my inner kid like the thing that she needs to hear is like, I will not abandon you if you're bad. I will always love you even if you mess up. We will do a good enough job. Good enough is enough, like all those things. And that was really helpful. That's kind of the first time I've done the combination of those things. And that was like, my system was just like, brrr, and it really helped. That was pre open mic. And I noticed after the open mic, my system, I didn't go into shame, and I didn't have any I had a tiny experience of just noticing that the date I was on, I was like, oh, I want this person to really affirm me and validate me and tell me how much they liked my songs. So I noticed that happening, but I didn't go into that hunger, the desperate hunger that my inner kid usually has around that. And it was really cool. Yeah. So that's a technique if folks at home like have a performance coming up or anything like that, they can try. Yeah.
I love that so much. So much. And a few things I want to say to you. One, I'm so proud of you for taking that risk. Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
huge. And I'm so glad you tried it. I totally believe you that even if I could look at your life and I could look at your body and be like, what do you mean, trying new shit? Like, look at all the stuff you've done. Like, I completely get how it's it's not what it seems. Like I experienced something similar with my singing. Like when I say I don't know what my voice sounds like. They're like, what the f are you talking about? You've been singing for almost three three decades, and you sing all the time. Like it really isn't. It really isn't what it seems. And for anyone listening, like I strongly encourage you, like take someone for their word, like their experience when they're sharing it. I know it can feel like maybe it's helpful to point out how you don't see it that way, but sometimes what we really need, I'll speak for myself here, is I just need the space held and my experience taken at face value. Like, I know it doesn't look like, I don't know what my voice sounds like, but I really feel like that. And it might look like, Ali, you've done, so many things in your life, but it doesn't feel like you've actually taken risks and felt safe taking those risks. And I want to say I'm proud of you. And I love that you share that exercise, because that's like, I know the humming is the polyvagal, like stimulating the polyvagal. Like, this is like polyvagal theory. I don't know much about it, but I know the humming kind of gets that going, and then the bilateral stimulation, and then the inner parenting. That's like the the magic trio. I'm gonna try it next time. I love it.
Yeah, try it. It was cool to be like, oh,
Hmm.
okay. Yeah, yeah. The humming stimulates the vagus nerve, which can be turn on our parasympathetic. And that's a very simplified way of saying that. But yeah, yes.
I appreciate you putting the name to it, because after I started, like when I said polyvagal, I was like, and I don't know why the fuck this is. Thank you. I sunk real fast, but you saved it.
We're here together. We're here together. We're in
Yeah,
collaboration.
appreciate it.
Thank you for saying that too about believing me and yeah, and relating. It just really helps to be normalized in that way. So thank you.
Absolutely. I want to be mindful of your time, so I want to start winding us down, and I want to first ask you if there is anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had.
I think the piece about the body awareness, I think elaborating more about what that even means, because for some people it just doesn't, because as trauma survivors, we tend to like the safe place is in our head, right? The safe place is to just like be in our thoughts, be in rumination land. When we get triggered, we tend to we're just in like lots of rumination. That's a lot for a lot of survivors. I think it can be really just be kind of bewildering or inaccessible, especially at first for people when you talk about like body awareness or like, especially when it's like under the system of yoga or something that's like really kind of like you have to do a practice, a 60 to 90-minute practice to be able to even feel the benefits, and you have to then follow some kind of dogma or something, right? So I think the piece about the felt sense work I'd love to just say a few words about is that and I have an amazing craniosacral and yoga teacher here in town, Todd Jackson, and so I get a lot of inspiration from him around this, and it relates so completely to singing because so much of singing work is like we have these held tensions or these holding, I'm not going to even use the word tension, I'll just say these holding patterns we have in our body related, and especially if we have CPTSD, related to our childhoods and the way we've grown up, and especially in regard to our, well, the whole body, right? So we tend to be like right, and then so a lot of people just think about, oh, the throat chakra, right? Like, and of course, like when you were speaking about your throat tightening with your own songs, right? So that's like this gateway is like, nope, we're not doing this. Like we are
Mm-hmm.
stopping the flow, right? And a lot of the a lot of our experiences as children, my experience is like I wasn't really allowed to cry, right? So like my body started to just be like, okay, no, we're not allowed. We have to just clamp down. And if we have that happening, we're not going to be able to sing in a free and easy way. So a lot of learning to sing or relearn is um, delayering these holding patterns or softening them, or being, well, the first step is becoming aware of them, right? And so then we start to be like, okay, well, how do we delayer them? And that is like with exercises, with movement, and with the felt sense awareness. And when I speak about felt sense awareness, it really is just like the brain going to that part of the body. And even if you don't feel that part of the body, and I'm like pointing to the this part of the body because so many of us have like, it feels like a dead zone, dark zone in the back of our throats. Like even if we've been singing for years, just like I don't know what my tongue's doing, but especially for beginners, like I don't know, I use that part to swallow, like to yawn, to cough, right? But any part of the body, and just the idea is we actually have to have patience to be there, to like allow the awareness to grow. but we can't start with like a 20-minute practice. And I think that's the thing that ends up happening is we go, okay, I'm going to meditate or do something for 20 minutes a day or even 10 minutes and even 5 minutes, right? Like we can't start there. We have to start with like 30 seconds, right? Like 30 seconds of like okay, and putting hands on the place because we get feedback, or lying over bolsters or weighted things over us, giving ourselves some kind of feedback, um, neurofeedback. And then we allow that awareness to grow. And as that awareness grows, which takes time. It takes so much time. We can start increasing the amount of time we're there, right? Um, and so that's part of what happens with folks when they start trying to do these things is like I think they just think, oh, I'm not made for that. Especially if we have ADHD, and especially if we have complex PTSD, like those things are our nervous system is just in chronic anxiety. So our nervous system's not going to want to do that, right? So one thing that has really helped people is like the combination of things like humming or sounding with that felt sense work, because you are calming and you're bringing awareness to the body. The silence piece can be really, really hard for people, right? To like sit in silence and feel into the body, especially because the body, for most of us, is like this unpredictable, unsafe zone. The mind just is more like, I can control this up here, right? So I think that's all I'll say about that. It's just like the main takeaway. It takes time, takes so much time, starting so small with that work. And you don't need like a program to follow to do that, right? You don't need to like do like this all these big things. Like honestly, you're going to be like, "Okay, how can I be with my neck right now? Like where my hand is. How can I just feel that?" And like you can do that anyway, in line at the grocery store, at the library while you're driving. Well, maybe not at first while you're driving, but
Yeah. Right. Still, I love that you added this, and yeah, I want to highlight like think the opposite of rigidity. Think the opposite of having to do it perfectly every time in a certain way and for a certain amount of time. Something I've been saying to myself lately is like a little goes a long way. When you think about the whole thing as a whole, and especially for somebody like me, like it just feels like too much. But little things like what Ali has pointed out, it's like putting your hand on your neck and sitting with the sensation and noticing how does that feel. Like that can and is enough.
I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah. Yep.
No, you inspired it. I'm just pulling from what you said. I did want to ask you something that I asked from all our guests here at Hello Trauma Brain. And this question is, if you could go back to a difficult time, what would you tell younger Ali?
Yeah. I feel like I'm always just telling her things. So it's like I'm always telling her um, the good enough piece is a big one.
Mm,
Like it's good enough. It's good enough to just be breathing. It's good enough just to be walking, because the thing that I have in my system is a constant striving to do better, be perfect, that kind of thing. So for her, I feel like, yeah, that kind of thing. And then, yeah, if I was to think about a particularly difficult time in my life, if I was the healthy adult in the room, I mean, I think for me, it's just like being held and being heard. So, like, asking my inner kid what was going on for her and really being present to what showed up emotionally, whatever was showing up, and just telling her that all that she was feeling made sense, that it would made sense given the context of what was happening in her life, and that I am there for her, always going to be there. I'll never abandon her. No matter what, no matter how she shows up, like she's just like perfect the way she is. Every expression that she has is just perfect the way she is. Like she doesn't need to change to be acceptable or liked or to fit in to something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's so many more things I would say, but that's like the core of
Yeah,
it.
that's
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Ali.
Yeah.
I want to take a moment to recognize you for your work and for showing up here today, for all the healing that you've done, for how you've shown up for little Ali, and how you have turned everything that you've learned and you now use it to help other people that are in need of this work, that are in need of this healing. I'm so glad I found your content. I'm so glad you said yes to this interview. Or actually, I'm going to call it conversation. I keep calling the interviews with the experts interviews, but really feels like a conversation to me.
Yeah.
And I want to say to you and to little Ali, I'm so glad you're both here and that you were able to join me and little Ricey today. And I hope that she continues to hear all those beautiful things because she deserves to hear them.
Hmm. Thank you. Little Ricey.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been so wonderful
Yeah.
to have this conversation. I feel like we could have a whole other conversation for
Yeah.
part two.
I could
Um,
totally talk to you for longer, yes. um,
so much to
th-
talk about. Yeah,
I
and
know.
I appreciate your podcast and the work you do. I just feel like it's so brave and needed, really needed. So I really appreciate you reaching out, and I feel really honored to be on the podcast. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm realizing now I forgot to ask you one more thing.
Yeah,
For
for sure.
anyone who wants to get in touch with you, wants to find you, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
I'm at Ali Boyce Voice on Instagram. That's the best way. And then the RRP group is under the Boyce Sisters. So at the Boyce Sisters on Instagram. And then I have a website, same thing, aliboycevoice.com. Yeah, those are the primary ways.
Okay. And for
Yeah.
anyone who is interested in getting in touch with Ali, don't worry. I'm going to link everything to the show notes so you'll be able to find her content and also her account with her sister Marissa. And again, Ali, one more time, I want to thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Risa. I want to mention too, we are going to start another like 6-month group of our it's called Reclaim Your Inner Singer RRP group. So we're going to be starting another one probably starting the fall, but we do have applications on the Boyce Sisters website as well for that. So if any of this was like, oh wow, that sounds cool, check that out. And we do a screening process. So you would fill out the application, and then you would get an email from us if it seems like it would be a good fit. Yeah, but otherwise, just reach out if you have any questions about that.
Excellent. You heard it here, folks. A new group is starting soon, and you can reach out to Ali and learn more. I will say, if you go to Ali's Instagram, I know in the account for the Boyce Sisters, they do explain a little bit more about the singing group there. So feel free to check that out too. And yeah, thank you so much again, Ali.
Thanks, Raisa.
Yeah. All right, survivors, checking in. How are you feeling after listening to part 2? Ali was pointing to her throat when speaking about how our body clamps down if we are not allowed to express our emotions safely. And apparently, I still struggle to take compliments, huh? Luckily for me, I get to re listen to the compliment as part of editing the episode. So I want to take a moment to say, thank you, Ali, and actually stay there because I said thank you and very briefly just went to the next thing. So I'm going to take a moment to allow space to receive Ali's beautiful feedback and her kind words about the work that I do. Okay. Every time someone says they appreciate my quote unquote work, I can hear my inner kiddo say, "What work?" Also, when I am called brave, every time she replies with, "Who is brave? Surely not me." The healing journey is ongoing. It's real. For now, I had such a lovely time talking to Ali, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation. In this week's healing invitation, I want to encourage you to try Ali's exercise with the magic trio, which is bilateral stimulation, stimulating the vagus nerve, and inner kiddo reparenting. Before I go on, I am going to be offering a few alternatives for people with disabilities or some other limitations. If this way still does not quite target something that you are able to do, I do encourage you to explore something that feels right for you. All right, are you ready? Also, please do not try this if you are operating any heavy machinery. You can listen on and then try it when you are in a position or in a place where you're able to focus and try this. And now, for real, are you ready? Let's do it. You can cross your arms or legs. Try to find a way to alternate movement between the right and left sides of your body. If this is available to you, you can have each hand lightly tap your opposite shoulder. If you are using your legs, perhaps alternate flexing your right and left foot. If you are a survivor of physical abuse like me, I recognize tapping can be triggering. You can try doing small circles with your hands or feet. Hum while you are doing this. And in between breaths, think of your inner kiddo and remind them that you are here. You will protect them, and they are safe to feel the way they do. It is not wrong, and they are not in trouble. What they are feeling is an emotion, and you will be there until it passes by. Keep repeating for as long as you feel comfortable. Then take a final deep breath when you feel like you are done and notice how your body feels. I will also add you might want to start with very small increments of time. So perhaps only 10 seconds the first time and then 10 more, and keep increasing until you get to a pace where you feel comfortable, and stay curious about how your body feels. Please leave a comment to let me know how this week's healing invitation goes if you choose to accept it. Before we wrap up this episode, all music and production is courtesy of yours truly. Also, I want to share a few ways you can support this podcast. You can subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or the platform that you are using to listen. Share this episode with anyone you think could find this podcast helpful. Subscribe to the Hello Trauma Brain YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to be the first to know when I post a new episode. And you can make a donation via PayPal. I want to thank you in advance for your support. A little can go a very long way in helping the podcast reach more survivors that could benefit from finding this content. No worries, all links will be provided in the show notes. Thank you for joining me and Ali today. We hope you found this episode helpful. I wish you the best as you discover your inner singer. It is time for our farewell affirmations. I invite you to repeat after me. I welcome the belief that I am enough. I am lovable. I am enough. 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 I and I deserve to heal. I wish you a gentle week and thank you for your presence.